That will never work. You can't push that. Seriously? Don't. Oh my God, that's another thing. That's bad. You probably should find other hobbies. You ever learn how to stop? Stop. Be happy. Don't bother me. I've seen better people. Do you really want to do that? And my third grade, get up. Welcome to Horrible Writing, the rawest, most candid, in-your-face writing show on the interwebs because none of us have time to suck. Let's do this. Welcome to episode 6 of Horrible Writing. I am your host, Paul Sading. How are you doing? I hope this finds you well. Community. In the age of social media. You fill in the rest of the episode. It's an interesting beast, isn't it? So writing's hard, writing is difficult, writing is a lonely experience. You and that voice in your head, that insistent, persistent, nagging voice that screams to be released, demands its freedom. It's your job to enable that voice. You owe it to yourself. You have to let that voice speak, because otherwise it's going to drive you crazy if you do not write. We do this in the solitude of physical and mental space. We close ourselves off in the home, the most private area we can get to write. We do it even when we're in public. And I do that. I'll go write in a coffee shop. I actually can write in a pub, believe it or not. But though we physically may be present in physical space with other Homo sapiens, those of us who can do that have this ability to shutter the walls of our brain, to drown out that noise, and to dedicate our energies to what we're working on. And it's awesome. We need that. We need that space, physical or head space, to let that inner voice scream what it needs to scream, to tell the story, to weave the lives of those characters into something, some form. But it gets lonely. Our species is a social species. We need each other. We evolved in community because back in the day, if you didn't have your fellow cave person there with you, you were getting eaten. You were not going to live through the night. You were not going to be able to take down that animal to feed yourself for the next week, next month. So we had to form community and to survive. You know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we had to do it to survive. And then, of course, over hundreds of thousands of years of evolution, our species has taken on more social aspects of that need. So we build communities, and we need them. As writers, we do need them. We need the camaraderie. We need the support. We need the advice. We need the guidance. We need somebody who just gets it. And it's a beautiful thing when you find those communities as a creative. It can be. But it can also be treacherous. So that's what I wanted to talk about in this episode is being careful about the community you select, the communities you choose to invest energy in. This is an episode that is appropriate for new, intermediate, and experienced writers. Not that I ever believe I have any authority upon which to speak, which is why this podcast is titled what it is titled. Though it may be a fun tongue-in-cheek self-deprecating poke in myself, obviously, if it's self-deprecating. But I don't claim to have the authority. All I have is my life experience and the things that I've accomplished in my life, as trivial and unimpressive as they are. But one thing I can talk about is people. I've been in the people business all my life, doing all kinds of things I'd rather not talk about on this podcast. And that insight has given me a reticent opinion about joining communities. I enjoy them. I can only tolerate them for so long, though. But there's a reason for it. And part of this show is not only to encourage and motivate you, but not pull any bullshit. Be very candid, be very honest, be very raw. I'm not interested in dancing around the bush. I'm not interested in platitudes. I'm just interested in being real with whoever wants to download and listen to this show. That's it. And sometimes I may sound harsh. You've probably already heard that in the earlier episodes when I talked about protecting my writing space. I don't care, because my writing is that important to me. If your writing is that important to you, you'll understand where I'm coming from. If you're struggling with it, but you're curious, good. Keep an open mind. Keep listening, I hope. And we can agree to disagree, but hopefully, in doing that, I can maybe give you another perspective to consider. And that's what I kind of want to do with this episode, because communities can be great, but in the balance of things, I honestly believe in this day and age where all of us have internet access in the modern world, in the developed countries, we really should be spending about 10% of our time in community and 90% of time in craft. Okay? 10-90. 10 community, 90% craft. Unfortunately, what I see, and probably what a lot of you see, is it's the exact inverse. All these writers, all these wannabe authors, all these aspiring authors, audio dramatists, poets, what you name it, screenwriters, us amateurs, spend far more time in community than we do in craft, generally speaking. Go to your favorite writers' Facebook group, audio drama group, poet group, screenwriters guild group, and look at the energy that people invest in that social interaction in those places, in those spaces. And then wonder how much time they have left to write when they're the ones who complain about how much they produce. You can't produce if you're on social media interacting with community. Now, you need to, right? As I mentioned, there are benefits to it. But those benefits come with a cost. Everything has a cost benefit to it. So there are benefits to being in a community. But you have to be careful about how much you're willing to pay for those benefits. Because trust me, folks, you're paying. You're not just surfing Facebook. You're paying. That subreddit that you're on, where you're reading those posts or even responding, you're paying with your time and your mental energy. At the very least, time and mental energy that could be spent creating. So when we complain about how X author released yet another book this year, how do they do it? Imagine how much you would get done if you did 10-90, 10% community, 90% of your time in your craft. How much more would you create? So I was interrupted while recording this, and that's why you got that cool little snazzy sound effect transition there to kind of throw you off your rhythm so you wouldn't recognize the fact that I was interrupted. And in post-production, I cleaned all this up through the magic of editing software, and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference except for the fact that I have no idea where I was in my train of thought. But the reason I tell you this and the reason I share this was, one, the phone call was important. It was a doctor's phone call. But at the same time, it's a great example. So it was kind of cool that it actually worked out. It's a great example of how to protect your writing time. I have my phone on vibrate. That's how I heard it. It's sitting right in front of me in my recording area. And this is not my writing time. It's well past my writing time for the day. So the phone gets put on vibrate. So I can get those important phone calls from work, or i.e. the doctor's office. If this were my writing time, that would not have happened. The phone would be on silent, turned upside down, or sometimes I even don't even leave it in the same room because it is my writing time. Protect that writing time almost at all costs. Now, my daughter was at a band camp this past week. She's proud papa moment, but was selected as a drum major for her high school band. So it's really cool for her to take yet another leadership position in her teens. Whereas I was a screw off, this kid is just doing amazing. And while she was gone, she was 3 hours away. I made sure my phone was on vibrate so I could get those notifications. Even during my writing time, I have the self-discipline to manage that, to ignore anything that's not her. That's okay if you're not. That did not happen overnight for me. It took years and years and years and years and years of working on it to get it to that point. So if you're newer to this craft or just life, I'm in my 40s. I'm not a spring chicken by any stretch of the imagination. If you just haven't lived enough yet, it's okay to not be able to do that. But you got to do those things, use those little tricks to protect that time. Totally off topic, but I needed to put this in here. Now let's get back to talking about communities. The reason it's important to me is there was a recent incident in an audio drama group that I belong to. Now, those of you who've listened to the other 5 episodes know that I'm a writer and an audio dramatist. I am not an author because the 2 books that I do have are in the editing phase. As soon as those are published, I'm changing my damn moniker. I'm changing all my tags. I'm changing my profiles. But for right now, I'm just a writer. Anybody who puts words in a Word doc is a writer, or a piece of paper, or an app on your phone. You're a writer. But I'm also an audio dramatist. And there was a question about, I just wanted to see who in that group of over 1,200 people was a pantser, who was a plotter, who was in between. It was a fun post, intended to be a fun post. And that's it. There's one guy in the group who gave me shit because I'm more of a pantser than I am a plotter. He claims to be 100% plotter. I don't know if he's 100%. He may be pretty far to that extreme, but 100%? He may be. I don't know. I don't watch his writing process. But we had a good, fun exchange back and forth, and other people were contributing to the conversation. Then there was one person who decided to jump in and deride every single audio drama that he didn't like. 95% of audio dramas, I believe, is what he quoted, and said he regretted being in audio drama because of the lack of professionalism in writing, and he was a hardcore plotter. Now, I don't say this to take shots at plotters or pantsers. I don't care. If it works for you, do it. As long as it's good writing, as long as you're working to be a better writer, do it, right? That's where I stand. I don't care because I don't know shit, just like this guy doesn't know shit about writing. So who am I to tell you how you have to do it? Stephen King could not walk into my house tomorrow and tell me how I will be writing. He could say, hey, Paul, this worked for me. And he, reading his Stephen King on Writing book, did that, and he has just increased my efficiency in the editing phase massively because of his advice, not direction, his advice, but he couldn't come in here and tell me how to do it himself. This guy chose to. What happened when this person made these derogatory, destructive comments? They were not constructive in any form or fashion. Debate happened. Emotions got involved. Tempers flared because he had defenders, he had detractors, and people started taking sides. Emotion blinded any thinking process, any reasoning, and this simple, stupid little fun poll that I put into this 1,200 member group exploded into this thread of hundreds of comments. People leaving the group because of it, because of the toxicity. I mean, it was, talk about drama. Audio dramatists know how to create drama out of nothing. It was so childish, so pathetic. I ignored most of it until I saw one of the members getting basically bullied, and I didn't like it. So I made a comment because I'm in a little different station than that person is. Not that I'm better than him or anything. I'm just older. I've had a chance to do a lot more stuff. And I'm from New York originally, so I have no problem being very, very direct with people. and I let that person and his defender basically know that this guy was wrong and that he was just being... I used very flowery language that I wouldn't use on this podcast, but I just let him know that guy was being an ass. He was showing his ass to the world. So this isn't an isolated incident. It happens in audio drama. It happens in screenwriting groups. It happens in writers groups. It happens all the time. I saw Sarah Werner, love her to death, of the Right Now podcast. I've mentioned her before. Incredibly positive member of the community. Incredibly. I support her on Patreon, and I don't do that to a lot of people because I believe in her and what she's doing and her message to the world. As writers, we need people like her. Even her group, I Am a Writer on Facebook, so if you're a writer and you're not in that group, go request membership. Even in that group, poor Sarah, she took a couple days to go away and be a human being, and she came back to a mess. But even in that group, it happens. And that's built by her with her personality, so it's very positive, a spirit of encouragement. And it still happens because people are people. So as a writer, as a creative, as someone with limited time and a goal to get published, to be a writer, to create, you don't have a lot of time to write. And especially if you want to be a disciple of the 1090 construct, right? You have to protect that writing time. And the black hole, the cesspool of social media and community is going to suck that away. It's going to, because it does. Time and again. How easy is it to get sucked into social and political and religious discussions? They happen in these communities. They have no place. Paul's opinion, no place. We're all creatives. We should be talking about the craft when we invest in our time in those places. Now, of course, art is going to inherently include political, spiritual, social perspective by the creator. Otherwise, why create? What's the point of meaningless art? It has to mean something, right? Or we wouldn't do it. So those things are inherently there in every discussion. The problem happens when they become an explicit aspect of the discussion. Now we're taking sides and pulling the spear, sharpening our spears and all that mess. If you're serious about what you're doing, you don't have time for that. Doesn't matter how much you feel the tug. No matter how offended you are or how enraged you are or how motivated you are to enlighten someone to it doesn't matter, folks. You're wasting your time. They're not going to learn. They're not going to hear. You're just going to shout into a vacuum. Is your creation really worth that sacrifice? You're giving time up on developing those characters, developing that world, that story arc, and investing it on someone who doesn't care what your opinion is. Ultimately, they don't. You're better than that. your creation is better than that. Your creation deserves more of you than that person who doesn't care about your opinion does deserve or doesn't deserve. And then you've got the spammy groups. I cannot stand them. I leave them as fast as I find out that that's what they're about. Buy my book, 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 buy my book. No, stop. That model was never relevant, and it's even less relevant now. I have a master's degree in marketing. Never used it in the real world because that's the way I make decisions. But I pay attention to those things because they do interest me. And those of you with experience probably know this as well. Relationship marketing. Yes, you will get people to buy and like your stuff regardless of whether or not they know you. But you are going to attract bees with honey. You are going to attract people with your personality, with establishing those relationships. I've been podcasting for 6 years. I've got a respectable following across a ton of different topics that I've done. I get people to try my stuff because I don't push it on them. Now, they may not like it. You know, Diary of a Madman is a great example. People can like my personality as Paul Sading, at Paul Sading on Twitter, by the way. They can like that personality, but when they get excited, and when they listen to Diary of a Madman, they tune out. It's too scary. It's too creepy. It's too twisted. Season 1 was all written and acted, for the most part, by me, and some people took issue with the fact that the story centers around this mysterious man, this mysterious character stalking a woman. I understand how that can spark issues for people that they're sensitive to. And I appreciate that. And them giving it a chance to listen is very much appreciated. But I wouldn't have gotten them that far. Even if they tune out after one episode, I wouldn't have gotten them that far without months of just being a human being on social media. So you've got the toxicity potential of any social interaction. It doesn't matter how awesome the group is. If it's a group of people, it's going to have drama at some point. Drama sucks your energy and takes you away from creating. And then there's that second aspect that I just talked about, the spammy stuff. Who's got time for that? No one's listening to you, and all you ever do is throw your book up there to tell us how awesome it is. Don't care. And that's how purchasing behaviors are happening now. That's the new world. People don't care how awesome your stuff is. They want to know how awesome you are. To a degree, we'll have to talk about that in another episode. But if they like you, they're going to try your stuff. If you just shove your book in your face, who cares? Everybody's got a book nowadays. I know that's extreme. I'm just saying it to make a point. So, again, two negative aspects of it. Now, there are good things about it, and I hit it earlier. There are resources that you'll never know about if you don't belong to these groups. There is advice that you're going to get from people who are more experienced than you in these groups. A great example is the For Love or Money stuff, the For Love or Money group. Susan K. Quinn, author, has a great book out there, Boot Camp. I would definitely recommend it. That's one of Paul's recommendations. She keeps it very low priced, and it's packed full of helpful stuff for those of you who want to self-publish. So check that out. Check out that group. Tell her that I sent you. I would appreciate it, because she's very, very relatable. She's very accessible, but she's also successful because she's doing it for a living. And she's very candid. She'll let you know. She makes, I don't know how much, but into the six figures just writing every year. That's something I want. I don't want to wake up and do the job that I'm doing that sucks the soul out of me. I want to write. I can't. I'm not in that position in my life. I have to work. So I use her as a model, not only because of her financial success, in the fact that she's doing it, but because of her accessibility. So there are positives to it. Help. There are times, especially in that For Love or Money group, where people are in crisis mode because Kindle did something and they don't know how to get around it, or CreateSpace created a problem for them to get a tangible physical book. And it's the 11th hour and they need help. They need advice on something. And those groups do that. So I am not anti-group by any stretch of the imagination, but groups, okay, in regards to your writing, groups are where writing goes to die. That's Paul's opinion. You can agree or disagree with me on that, and that's fine. But remember that when I say that, I keep that in the context of the 10-90 construct. 10% of your time in community, 90% of your time in your craft. If you're honest, folks, I want to hear your stories. I want to listen to your stories. I want to read your stories. You aren't going to get there if you're spending, I feel, even half of your time in those two areas. I honestly feel as nice as it is to talk to other human beings, it's not getting you published. People are going to give me anecdotes to show me otherwise, but how much time went into that one break that you got? It was not just a single, hey, Joe, thanks for letting me in the group. I really like you. Hey, can you help me meet an agent? Oh, agent. That doesn't happen. Even when those things happen, we're talking hundreds of hours of other stuff that happened to lead to that point. Hundreds of hours you could have been writing, drafting, creating, sketching, outlining, etc. Right? 10-90. The 10-90 rule. That's my new rule. Oh, what's that? Evil music? It must be time for some horrible writing. Now, this one comes to us from a writer named Dohai. I actually know Dohai. Again, being the 6th episode, still nice and early in the show's construct. So there have been some wonderful people who are willing to help me out with content. And Dohai, you're going to actually hear more about him in the future. But he sent me his writing sample. He called it Time. The theme, allowing yourself and your work time to evolve. So kind of nice thematically that it kind of matches up with what I've been preaching in this episode. Now, what he gave me is a segment from his first ever audio drama script, a spoof of a sponsorship message. Those of you who are audio drama fans will know that there are a number of shows who do that. So that's kind of what he sent us here. It was going to appear in a radio-style show lampooning superstitions. The first version, the old version, sat for about 9 months while they worked on another project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read it to you. The old version. With the increase in cases of measles across the globe, there is no better time than right now to stock up on Expel It. Our unique blend of herbs, spices, chinchilla excretion has been a winning combination for over 50 years. And right now, we're offering you the chance to begoff. That's right. Buy one, get one absolutely free. As you know, here at wholesaleorganics.org, we dilute our homeopathic medicines 3 times more than our biggest competitor, making it 3 times stronger, and sold to you at a fraction of the cost. That's wholesaleorganics.org. Type in the offer code WATER at the checkout this week and get a further 10% off. Now, Dohai goes on to say the first draft gives us a feel for the message, but the advert of this nature requires a hard sell. To achieve the hard sell, I feel I changed 3 things. The emphasis from casual to emergency, time has run out, you need this product now or your young ones are going to be dropping like flies. I also added mumps, bumps, rubella, just so everyone is absolutely clear what I'm slamming. And to make doubly sure that I've added the autism claim. The product name Expel It was just a name plucked out of the air. The new name, Immunition, screams, get armed to the teeth in the war against disease. However, I'm going to have to change the name again because there's an actual product with that name. It's a supplement. The things we find out when we write, research. The offer code WATER on reflection might get missed as a punchline. And for those of you who understand what homeopathy actually is, I can see where he's coming from, especially with its position in the middle of the sentence. So I changed it to snake oil and moved it to the end of the sentence, dropping background music to silence it before the words are spoken. It'll give it that extra emphasis. So then he provides us with his new version. Wholesaleorganics.org is your one-stop shop for all your cynically, I like this wordplay here, cynically proven alternative medicines at a fraction of the cost. Why pay through the nose for your homeopathic remedies when you can buy directly from us, saving you money and bringing you peace of mind? With cases of measles now reaching epidemic proportions across the globe, there is no time to lose. You need to stock up on ammunition right now. This amazing product is not only effective against measles, but will protect your little ones against the mumps and rubella too. Our unique blend of herbs, spices, and chinchilla excretion has been a winning combination for almost 20 years, and not a single case of autism has ever been recorded. Here at WholesalerOrganics.org, we dilute our homeopathic medicines 3 times more than our largest competitor, making it 3 times stronger. Not only is it stronger, but we also ship it to you for the fraction of the cost. That's WholesalerOrganics.org. At the checkout on our website this week, you can get a further 10% off if you use the offer code SNAKEOIL. So upon reflection, Dohai says, this is my first ever script, and as such, was only using it as a practice document to improve my ability. But seeing the transformation from okay into something more refined, something measurably better, has given me the confidence to believe that I could actually take that giant leap into publishing it. Since starting the second draft of this new script, new ideas have emerged that I would never have imagined, showing me that this story is taking on a life of its own. How many times have we said that, writers? That it wants to grow and take over the world. And while it is still very scary, I have grown immeasurably in confidence. And the pleasure, look at those key words, and the pleasure I derive from completing this first draft has returned fourfold. As I've mentioned 1,000 times in 5 previous episodes, I'm so hyperbolic. When I look for these examples of horrible writing, this is a judgment-free zone. This is us creating camaraderie, us relating to each other. And I wanted the payoff. I wanted that positive payoff. And Dohai has provided that here. And Dohai, thank you very much for this contribution. This is an absolutely wonderful contribution, very open, very honest, and very candid, and I really appreciate you sharing this much of your writing. Folks, this isn't easy. If you're a writer who has never put your stuff in front of anybody who isn't blood-related or married to you, or, you grew up alongside, this stuff can hurt. It is not easy. By our nature, survival instinct always takes priority. We do things to survive, and we avoid those things that threaten our survival. And putting your art in front of other people is not easy. A lot of us don't do it because of that fact, whether we recognize it or not. So I really appreciate it, and I love that payoff, Dohai. And as writers, to those of you listening in, take away that payoff as well. Look at what he had to say in there about his personal growth as a writer, serving as the payoff. Because to me, that's what that really does. That serves as his payoff for doing this. Now, this particular piece may never see the light of anything ever, except for exposing it here. But the rest, the entire product may never actually see the world. And he still has derived benefit from it. He's grown because of it. He's a better writer because of it. Just because of he's more confident. And what writer couldn't use more shot of confidence once in a while or every day. I know I could, and I don't even want to think of how many tens of thousands of words I already have in front of people, never mind those hundreds of thousands of words that I'm trying to get out there. So Dohai, thank you very much to everyone. Please, when you listen to this, when you find this show, contribute your horrible writing sample to me. It doesn't have to be that long. That's about the limit of the length I would like to take anyways for the show. But send those in and let's share and commiserate and and just bond over these types of things. You can do that by writing to me at horriblewritingpodcast@gmail.com. Or you can go over to paulsading.com. There's a contact tab, and you can just reach out to me that way. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Paul Sading. And the show can be found at Writing Horrible on Twitter. Please go out there, follow those accounts, retweet. I do a hashtag word count Wednesday every Wednesday. And I share my word count, which probably wasn't a good idea right now because I'm actually editing a number of stories instead of writing. Maybe it will work out. Who knows? But the word count is not what I would like to put out as a public example, but it is what it is. I'm being raw and honest with you all, and that's my goal for this, is I just want to talk to other writers, people I can relate to, people who aren't making a full-time living at this. Not that I have a problem relating or communicating with those who do. I find inspiration in those folks. But I started this show because I wanted to document the entire journey, as much of it as I could. And now was the time to do that, even though I've been writing forever, but I've gotten serious about getting those damn books published within, the last year. So I want more samples. I want more examples. And hey, if I just happen to have an author actually trip across this podcast and you believe in this mission, send your sample over to me. Allow us to use it. I would be honored, humbled, to have an actual published author contribute to this conversation, to show us who have not been published that we all have scars. We've all got the bumps and bruises. Some of us just get back up, wipe the dirt off, clean out the pebbles in our skin, use a little bit of peroxide, and press on. So yeah, I would love to have that. Again, reach out. I would love to talk to any and all of you. Rate the show wherever you find it, please. That stuff helps other writers find it, and we can grow together. And check out those shows that I mentioned and those podcasts. Those Facebook pages that I mentioned, For Love or Money with Susan K. Quinn, and then the I Am a Writer with Sarah Werner. Sarah's also got the podcast, the Right Now podcast, write as in the verb write. Check them out. Awesome folks. You can't go wrong with those two people. I realize I'm putting some of my reputation on stake. So Sarah and Susan, if you could please not help me maintain the little reputation I do have, I'd greatly appreciate it. All right. Hey, this has been a long episode, and this was supposed to be a hard-hitting show. Hey, it's important. 1090 principle. Let me know how that goes for you. Until next time, keep being up it. This has been Horrible Writing, and hopefully after this episode, you suck less than you did at the beginning. I am Paul Sading, your host extraordinaire. You can find me over on the Twitterverse at Writing Horrible and over at paulsading.com/horrible-writing. Until next time, suck less.